Ladies and gents, it takes a lot to get me excited about the gaming industry. In fact, over the last 10 years, there really hasn't been that much that has managed to rustle my jimmies and get me hyped about the industry as a whole. Now, some of you know where this is going, and if you do know where this is going, great, I'm happy to be here with you on the ride. Well, for those of you who don't, it's time to introduce you to a little something called Stop Killing Games. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of backstory on what this is, and yes, I know there has been a lot of drama around this, and I'm going to, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to touch on that drama because of the way it pertains to the initiative as a whole. But let's get into it. So, over the last year, an initiative called Stop Killing Games was founded and has been pushed through not so much a survey, but a guy named Ross from Accursed Farms, a YouTube channel which makes some honestly amazing content, decided to go above and beyond starting a petition on change.org or anything like that, and instead took this right where it matters. Through a European Citizens Initiative petition, which requires 1 million signatures to get it in front of their lawmakers to actually discuss this. And what are they trying to get in front of the lawmakers? Well, I'm going to dive into that in a second. But there is also one for the UK separately because we left the EU that requires 100,000, and that's now sat at almost 200,000. As you'll notice on screen, the European Citizens Initiative is now at 1.18 million signatures, and this is exciting. So, what is Stop Killing Games? Stop Killing Games is something that has been misunderstood for the last year that this has been running, for quite a few reasons, and one reason in particular that is actually the reason that I didn't cover this in the first place, because the drama outweighed the importance of this initiative, and I didn't want to discuss the drama to take away from the initiative itself, as was the case with Ross from Accursed Farms. Well, it turns out me and him were both wrong. This drama that I'm talking about is, of course, the drama surrounding Pirate Software. Yes, that Pirate Software, the big streamer. And you've probably seen videos about this that have gone on like more of a personal attack at Thor or Pirate Software. And while I understand why all this is happening, it detracts from the problem that caused all of this. The drama is a layer on top. The drama isn't the initiative. So Stop Killing Games is aiming to do something that I think we can all get behind on absolutely every level as consumers of video games. And this is to stop game companies and developers maliciously ending their games, having an end of life of their game, whether that be live service, single player, doesn't matter, and consequently making the game in its entirety completely wholly unplayable, or degrading the single player experience of a game that had multiplayer to the point that it's not even a shell of its former self, because they seemingly turned off the servers, and we are now finding out that the single player parts of that game were just randomly tied in to multiplayer elements, therefore just killing aspects of the single player game. And this has all stemmed from a really big argument, which is games are telling you that you're not buying a product. You're buying a subscription or a license to a service. Ladies and gents, today's video is brought to you by OBSBot with their Meet SE webcam. This little beauty uses AI frame tracking to always keep you center of the frame. This little beast does 1080p at up to 100 frames per second, with built-in gesture controls to both start and stop tracking, and of course gesture control to both pinch and zoom. Hey there. But more on OBSBot later in the video. But I can give you a better example of a game that could have been affected by this if the developers were indeed malicious about this. Let's take Halo Infinite as an example, a game that I love and play. It has both single player and multiplayer. Now, if that game ceased to be supported by the game developers, you'd look at it and say, well, the multiplayer's gone, that's sad, but at least we still have the single player. Well, that wouldn't be the case, actually, because the single player campaign isn't just single player. You can play multiplayer with friends. And because you can play multiplayer with friends, when you launch up your single player version of the game, it authenticates with their servers to load your online profile so that your friends can drop into your single player game, because your single player game isn't actually single player. When you launch your single player game, it is starting a server in the background of your game. And that server has to authenticate with their services and their servers to make sure that it is prepared and primed for other people to join this single player game, which, as I've said, is not actually single player, it's a multiplayer lobby with just you. So if that company was to shut down and just outright rip their online services out, your single player wouldn't work. Now, to be fair, in the case of Halo, the company has a really good track record of allowing their older games to be playable in some form, some way, and handling end of life of those games pretty well, I would say, for the most part. But they aren't every company and they aren't every developer. The prime example of this was a game called The Crew. The Crew is yet another game that was released by Ubisoft, or Ubislop, whatever you want to call them now, and had both single player and multiplayer elements to it. This game had been available for purchase from its release date until 6 months later, when they decided, we don't want to support this game anymore, we're going to kill the game. And you might think again, well, they left single player up, right? Oh no, they said that because the single player and multiplayer were so tied together, they were just removing the game. Not removing it from sale, removing it from existence. They actively went into people's Steam libraries and removed the game that you purchased. And this was the first real malicious example of a company saying, you didn't purchase a game, you purchased a license to use this service. And the problem here is that this terminology is often buried in deep TOS, deep EULAs, things that even if you had a week to read through them and you kind of understood legal terms, you probably still wouldn't find it. Not to mention that most of the time you see these TOS and EULAs after purchasing the game. And you might be thinking, well, that's just illegal, right? Well, it would turn out no. It turns out the problem here isn't a lack of enforcing a law. There's no law around this. Like, there is straight up nothing to protect you, the customer, from this roundabout way of abusing a system. They are actually following the law, believe it or not. So this means the law must change. And Stop Killing Games is well on track to get that done. And you might be thinking, well, they've reached the signature amount. Yes, that is true. But something important to note here is that this doesn't make a law suddenly appear, pop into existence. This means that lawmakers and legislators will now come together and discuss this, and discuss how they could incorporate this law into the current legal system, and what other laws would need to be amended to make this happen. And there is also the next problem. While it only requires 1 million signatures for the EU version of this, they haven't tallied up false signatures yet, which means many people will have signed it twice under false names or under false addresses, thinking they're helping the cause, when in actual fact they're harming it by giving us a false sense of security to this initiative. So if you're watching this and you haven't signed it yet because you think, well, it's passed, please go and sign this. This is fantastic for all consumers in the video game industry. There is no downside for the consumers. This is protection on your purchases going forward. Now, you might be thinking, well, how do people think that this is bad for the consumer? And this is where, unfortunately, I have to address this, even though, honestly, enough people already have. After Ross from Accursed Farms made this public and posted the initiative of how they are proposing for this to work, Pirate Software, the beloved funny shorts guy that uses MS Paint to describe honestly nonsensical things, decided to take a stance on this that I think is possibly the biggest L he could have taken. Just hands down, I don't think he could have addressed this any worse. And what I find funny is, he could have just not addressed it. That would have been best case scenario. Because what Pirate Software did was come out and state that this is, well, I'll play it in his own words for you.
Oh shit, now this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. No, eat my entire ass. That the level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid ass move. That's an incredibly stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I dropped the mask entirely.
So yeah, clearly was not happy about this entire situation. Kind of unjustifiably so, because first of all, this happened during his live stream, where he was moaning about the way that this would affect MMOs, and you know, you can't expect a game company to rip multiplayer out of their MMO. World of Warcraft couldn't just rip multiplayer out of it. Ironically, while being on the slide from this initiative that quite clearly states that the initiative would not force MMOs to do that. That's not what this would do. And then when pointed out to him that this was not the case and that he had, you know, people gave him the benefit of the doubt. Right? It's there on screen and he's reading it wrong. He misunderstood this. So people gave him benefit of the doubt and said, look, that's not what the initiative's trying to do. And in fact, it states there quite clearly that that's not what it's trying to do. And he just doubled down, tripled down. No matter how many times people, and influential people I should add, got this across to him that that's not what they're doing. That's not what they're trying to do. He just kept making it worse. This led to a boiling point where a lot of hate was sent his way. Now, I just want to say, and I think this goes without saying, he is claiming to have had a lot of death threats. He's claiming that the companies he worked for are being targeted with dislikes and bad reviews on their Steam games, and I don't even think you should be attacking him personally. It's not something I've ever condoned, even back in the days of Dreamworld, the early days of Earth 2, where I quite clearly said, you can hate the product, you can hate the idea, and you can hate the operation of it and the way it is being handled, but do not go after family members. Do not go after people that just aren't involved in this. But this is the internet and that's going to happen. And unfortunately, that is going to detract from the terrible stance that Pirate Software has taken on this. But I don't think it excuses him of the terrible take. At the end of the day, he stood his ground and he is entitled to his own opinion. You know, saying that this is going to kill off live service games and it's going to harm the industry as a whole, he can have that opinion. But the problem here is, he was making factual statements that were correct about saying, this thing would harm this industry. This thing would kill live service games. But the this, in his statement, was a misconception on his part from the very beginning. Asking them to rip out the multiplayer code entirely would kill the game. Yes, it would, but the initiative isn't asking them to do that, therefore this wouldn't kill the game. This is a rabbit hole that goes so deep that if I covered the entire Pirate Software side of this saga, this would be a 2-hour, 3-hour video, and that is no joke. This rabbit hole runs deep. But this is the fundamental of it. This is the kind of top and bottom, the TLDR. A massive thank you to OBSBot for sponsoring today's video. You're watching this through the Meet SE right now, and its AI-based live reframing will make sure you are always center of the frame. Whether you're just chilling in a call, gaming with the boys, sitting in a meeting, or maybe you fancy streaming some content, the Meet SE is available in 3 stylish colours: Cloud White, Space Grey, and Aurora Green. And not to mention a form factor that will put other webcams to shame. This right here is the 4K version, but you're watching through the 1080p version, that can do up to an astounding 100 FPS. This little beast is equipped with a 1/2-inch CMOS sensor, which has incredible low-light performance, such as right now, where I'm not even using a ring light or key lights, and I am still clear and well lit. All OBSBot cameras are compatible with most of the gaming ecosystem through open source control. So this means it works with peripherals such as the Stream Deck. My personal favourite use case for this camera is to use it while on meetings on my laptop, so that no matter how much of a goblin I look when I'm sitting down on the meeting, I am still completely visible in frame, and it just works. This has been my go-to camera for meetings for over the last month, since they first reached out to me and offered for me to try this camera out. I've used a few webcams over the years, and honestly, none of them have impressed me, but the OBSBot has impressed me. It is simply plug and play, no setup required, which honestly is very, very rare when it comes to tech these days. OBSBot currently has a big exclusive discount code stack up to 19% off during Prime Day. Currently on screen, in the description and pinned comment below. Pirate Software was misinformed in his original interpretation of this initiative. He was informed he was wrong, but this is a man that clearly has a deep-seated pride that he can't let go of. If he is wrong, he cannot be wrong. That isn't an option. We have to go to plan B, which is you're all wrong. Again, this doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on an ideology, on a take that is just objectively, factually, just wrong from the get-go, and provably so. And why this drama blew so far out of the water and so far out of control is because people started unearthing clips of Pirate Software doing raids, in one clip in particular, of him doing a raid in a game in Ashes of Creation, where somebody pulled an observer or an Oculus, I can't remember what it was called, a mob that just killed the entire raid, and he's going on about, oh god, you're all idiots. And these are people, his viewers, that are playing with him. And he says, who pulled the Oculus? You've killed us all. An hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes gone to waste. You should be banned. I'm gonna go find the clip and see who did it, and I'm gonna ban them. And just absolutely railing on the people in the raid, publicly shaming them in Twitch chat on stream. When he pulls up the clip, before the clip's even pulled up, people are saying, bro, you pulled it. And he's like, no, I'm pulling up the clip. Whoever did it, they're banned or whatever. I'm getting rid of them. You're all done. I'm publicly humiliate you on stream. And of course, who would have thunk it? He goes to the clip, and you can see that the hit splat on the creature, the Oculus, or the Observer, whatever it was called, is in bold and colour. It's Pirate Software's hit splat. He aggroed the creature.
Sabu got left behind. Sabu is not paying attention. Sabu. God damn it, guys.
Oh, no. Who pulled the ocular?
So one of you pulled the ocular. Why? Now half the raid is dead. Was there a reason for that? The lightning ball pulled... I cast lightning ball before that Oculus appeared, and half the raid was in the back because they pulled the wrong pack. I'm not at fault there. I'm correct there for doing that. 100%. No. Absolutely not at fault there. That is not on me. This guy sounds like he takes criticism well. You sound like you want to talk to me about it in the unban request.
And as soon as you saw it register on his face, when he realised, shit, it was me, I was in the wrong. And now, do you A, double down, or do you B, apologise and say, yeah, you know what, guys, hold my hands up, mea culpa, my problem, I caused this, bit embarrassing, won't happen again. Well, of course he doubled down and starts screaming that I'm not at fault, I'm not in the wrong. Like, just copium radiating from him. And while this has nothing to do with the Stop Killing Games initiative, this was used by a lot of people to say, look, he won't admit when he's wrong, even when faced with the just pure evidence that he is wrong about something. He will not accept it out of pride. And that's what I think it is. I think it's pride. But I wanted to... While I didn't want to get into the whole drama surrounding this, and trust me, I haven't even scraped the surface, I just wanted to lay out this foundation that he gets emotional and he gets emotionally attached to the things he says, and he cannot let the result of that be anything other than what he said, even when factually proven wrong. And this means that there are a lot of his viewers that I still, to this day, see echoing his words, less so in the last 2 weeks since all of this blew up, and this is the beauty of this. His downfall actually revealed his misinformation on all of this initiative, and the fact that he basically just sandbagged the whole initiative through lies, malice, or just blatant misinformation. Well, since people like Charlie, Moist Critical, Mudahar, Some Ordinary Gamer, and so many other people have covered this topic, outing him for just the outright misinformation, including, and I'm very proud of him for doing this, Ross from Accursed Games himself, this petition has boomed. Only 3 weeks ago, this was stuck at around 140,000 for the EU one. It started rising by 100,000 a day. And boys, we have got until the end of this month. We've got another 3.5 weeks to keep getting signatures. And as you can see, there's no boss health bar that's appeared underneath. Overdrive. This is essentially the amount that they feel they will need to comfortably get enough signings so that even when the invalid and fraudulent ones have been thrown away in the counting process, we will have cleared 1 million easily. comfortably. The main boss is dead, but my god, a second boss has spawned in. So let's get these signatures and let's get this pushed over the line, because this is genuinely monumental for the gaming industry going forward. And I don't say that lightly. I'm not one to hype up the importance of something and overhype something that's happening. Occasionally do. That's out of excitement. But this truly is going to stop a lot of bad faith actors and just game companies that are ripping you off intentionally. Some game companies, and I believe Ubisoft are doing this intentionally, have made this their business model. Because there is no law saying that they can't. Make a game, milk as much of it as you can, extract as much money out of it as you can, then kill it off and release the next new flashy thing. And rinse and repeat. So, ladies and gents, I truly hope that in a month's time, when all of this is settled, the votes have been counted, and this actually gets brought to the attention of lawmakers here in the UK and in the EU, that we actually get a response from the respective governments that is a good one. That is laying the path to fixing this problem. I believe, as do clearly well over 1 million of you that were willing to sign this, that if you purchase a game, you should have the rights to play that game until the end of time. The company doesn't need to support it, they don't need to keep the multiplayer running on servers at their cost, but they just need to not take the game away from you. Whether they decide to release server files upon sunsetting their game, whether they decide to allow you to just host your own emulated servers yourself, or whether they just strip out their multiplayer, turn off their DRM and authentication for the multiplayer elements, and allow you to play the single player unimpeded, it's a win-win for us, because they're going to have to tell you ahead of purchase of the game what their end-of-life plan is. This will filter out the bad actors, because they will legally have to tell you up front, we don't plan to support this game at all, and we have no minimum time that we plan to support it for. They can still launch the game and kill it, but now they're going to have to tell you that ahead of time. And that is going to drive a lot of people away from their games, because it is basically them broadcasting that they do not give a flying fudge what happens to the game and what happens to the money that you spent. Which means more honest games and developers will rope in more players and sales, because they are more honest about it, and they are telling you what they plan to do to support their game at end of life, if it should occur, and for how long. It's a win-win for the consumers. And despite what Pirate Software will have people believe, even in his most recent statements, that, game developers are coming to him in secrecy because it's such a taboo topic to talk about, telling him that they agree with his stance that it will kill game development, I have to put my foot down here and say that I flat out do not believe that. Many of you know that I have been consulting in the game industry for the last 3 years. Since I started my YouTube channel, it's a side business that actually took off of mine, and I have consulted for a lot of games. And the ones I've consulted for over the last year while this initiative has been running actually wholeheartedly agree with this. I haven't spoken to a single developer or game studio that thinks this is a bad thing. They actually love it because, as I've just said, because this means the honest companies that aren't trying to screw you out of your money and trying to just turn your game into dust, well, they will shine out above the AAA predators that are basically preying on you, taking your money, offering you a game, and then killing it so that you can buy the next best thing. So, am I saying people haven't come to him and said that? No. Maybe people have. But from the amount of people I have spoken in the game industry, and as a game developer myself, I want to say this. No matter how boldly confident Pirate Software is in his statements, he does not represent us, the game developers. He does not represent the game companies. He may represent some of the much, much bigger AAA ones who have been abusing this loophole, but he does not represent us and our opinions on this. He does not speak for us. Ladies and gents, this is a video that I am so glad that I've been able to make. And as I said earlier, please, please take 30 seconds to sign this petition if this is something you believe in, and help make a difference in making this a reality. I know so many people will say, well, I'm just one petition, I'm one signature, why does it matter? I don't make a difference. You do. If 1 million people all thought that, we wouldn't be sat at 1 million signatures on this right now. Your signature does make a difference. And if you are not from the UK or not from the EU, please encourage your friends from those countries and areas to sign this if it is something they believe in. As always, ladies and gents, a massive thank you to the patrons. You guys are absolute legends. A massive thank you for watching this video. And as always, until next time, take care.